Over 100 exhibitors were displaying their virtual reality products, and everywhere we looked, we saw people with VR headsets and also large television screens. The screens were for the visitors, so they could see what the users were seeing in their headsets. A company called Leap Motion has a technology that maps the user's hands and brings them into the VR world, where he can use them to manipulate objects. Martin Schubert tells us more about it.
So basically the idea is bringing your hands into virtual reality with you so that you can interact with the virtual world the same way that you interact with the real world. So basically anything that you use virtual reality for, we think you should be able to use your hands as an input for that experience. So running the gamut from interactive, from video, being able to see your hands and navigate a menu with it, to full-blown manipulation of physical objects like we're showing over there, being able to grab virtual objects the same way that you grab real objects and basically just interact the same way you would out in reality. But what we do is, with our camera system and our tracking technology, we track your hands, and then it's up to sort of the developer what they want to do with that information. So you can change the hands to make them look like real hands, make them look like robot hands, whatever your experience is about, and then you can use your hands to interact with the physical world, so with the virtual world. People are using it for gaming is obviously one of the big applications for virtual reality right now, but everything from education, being able to, for instance, put together atoms or molecules in a chemistry experience, or manipulating, being able to draw in the air by pinching, navigating a menu or a space. Basically, any interaction in VR, you should be able to use your bare hands and just interact naturally.
A company called Forge FX Training Simulators trains people on how to do heavy industrial tasks, in this case de-icing aircraft. Greg Myers gives us some details.
So we specialize in the development of custom 3D training simulators. So what we do is we take heavy equipment operators and we put them inside simulators that replicate the machinery that they'll be operating for their jobs. So right here, Adam is operating a aircraft de-icing training simulator. So we've taken the real-world controls directly out of the cab, wired it up to work with our simulation engine, hooked it up to an Oculus Rift headset, so he has full 360 viewpoint, so he can see everything that's happening. So he's not just learning how to operate the machinery, but he's understanding the spatial relations challenge that he's going to deal with in the real world. I think what we do the best is that we use video game technology to produce industrial job training simulators. So we're using off-the-shelf video game technology, off-the-shelf head tracking software and hardware, and that allows us to offer our clients a very inexpensive way to get into the simulation market. So in the past, it used to cost $2-3 million to develop a simulator. Now we can develop something for low six figures.
Before we can immerse ourselves in VR worlds, we have to create those worlds, and the hardware to do that is quite interesting. This is Nokia's Ozo virtual reality camera. It has 8 cameras all taking pictures simultaneously, each one recording the scene from a different angle. The images are then stitched together using software to create a virtual reality landscape that a user can move around in. Stuart English of Nokia tells us more about it.
Hi, well, what we're looking at here is the Ozo professional virtual reality camera. And virtual reality is this new way of telling stories, unlike traditional video, which is like a rectangle you look at. In virtual reality, it gives you the experience of looking anywhere you want, completely free in 360 degrees. So this is the little camera. It's explicitly designed for VR, which most cameras are not. And just from a sizing point of view, it looks remarkably similar to a human head, and there's good reason for that. It actually really just mimics the way we see the world as human beings. There's 8 cameras, but if I frame it, it looks like a pair of eyes, and there's a reason for that. It's a stereoscopic pair, so there's 8 of these cameras in the camera, and they're all seeing the world at exactly the same moment in time. So these 8 streams of images are actually combined in a process referred to as stitching, and that's what puts the world together so you can see it in your HMD or in your cell phone. So we're capturing 30 images every second. So it presents itself to the viewer as a video, moving pictures with sound that's correlated to the images. The fundamental difference is that being that it's a 360 degree thing, the video you capture really gives the viewer the freedom to look everywhere they want.
That was some of our footage from SVVR. We'll be showing more in a little while. Carl, Where is VR going right now? We saw some of the things that are happening. What do you think the long-term direction is?
I mean, this is a technology that's going to affect everything. It's going to touch everything in some way. Anywhere where you're using computers, where we're dealing with a lot of information, where we're dealing with spaces in the real world, travel, this is going to touch everything. So that's a hard question to answer because, the answer is, everything will be affected by this. Yeah.
Now, why would I want to buy a headset? What application would it have that I would want to personally own one?
In the short term, the two main areas in the short term are going to be gaming. VR makes games a ton of fun, and that's really the obvious early market, and that's an easy one. It's a no-brainer. That's what Oculus is really going for. And then the other one is 360 video, like we just saw in that clip, where there's a ton of content in the world. We can go out there. We can take 360 footage of real places in the real world. We can do it, pre-recorded or real time even, and then we can visit those places virtually in VR by putting on a headset. And now I can pop onto the beach. I can pop across the world.
Do you think it's mostly entertainment, or are there really some societal areas of significance that are going to be affected?
Entertainment's really an early, easy market, but some really big markets are going to be healthcare, 3D modeling, anywhere we're dealing with 3D and engineering, live events, both entertainment and non-entertainment, serious live events.
You say healthcare, you mean like surgeons operating in virtual reality before they do the real thing?
Yeah, so training for surgery, that's one easy area. VR's been used for about 30 years for PTSD treatment and phobias, very effective for PTSD and phobias. It's also used for pain management, very effective for pain management, surprisingly. You can essentially overwhelm your senses and you forget about the pain because of, what you're seeing in the virtual reality. Also therapies, and one of the most interesting on the health and medical side for me is learning how to deal with social situations where maybe peer pressure or situations that are a little bit challenging, dealing with difficult people. You can train people and coach them in virtual reality in a virtual environment so that they can cope better with these real situations when they appear in the real world.
So does that mean that it'll be a little bit like a chat room, like you're in a virtual world, but there are other people in there with you at the same time?
Yes, there's a number of social platforms right now that allow you to go in, you become an avatar, and you talk to other avatars, and you're all wearing VR devices, and sometimes you're wearing full body tracking suits, so you have body language, and there's even some folks working on facial expression, so you can actually map facial expression in real time. You can see when someone's smiling, where they're looking, eye tracking, all of these things people are experimenting with right now.
Is there any possible downside to this? Some people say that people will get so involved in this fantasy world that they'll lose contact with the real world.
Right. It's definitely a danger. I mean, if you can go anywhere and be anyone, why would you not be the big muscly guy? Why not spend all of your time, permanent sunset on a beach in paradise? It's, we're going to have to learn self-control, I think, as, humanity.